The elevator slams to a stop, lights flickering as Chloe gasps, trapped inches from a stranger whose hand suddenly grips hers. Firm, grounding. If they find us like this, everything breaks. The doors burst open, flashbulbs explode, voices shouting, "Mr. Blackwell!" Her heart drops. Billionaire CEO, the man from every headline, still holding her like she matters. Hours later, he finds her again, calm, controlled, offering a contract worth more than her entire life. Be mine for 30 days. I fix everything. She should walk away until the hospital calls. Her brother has 24 hours. Pen shaking, she signs. But she doesn't see the cameras already watching. If they find us like this, everything breaks. The stranger whispers, his voice low and steady, fingers tightening around Chloe Bennett's hand as the elevator jerks violently to a stop somewhere between the 42nd and 43rd floor, the lights flickering like a warning she doesn't understand yet, her breath catching as she presses back against the mirrored wall, heart pounding in uneven bursts. Because nothing about this moment makes sense, not the silence swallowing the building, not the way this man stands so close yet feels like a storm held barely in place, not the way his eyes lock onto hers as if she suddenly matters in a world where she has never mattered before. And then the lights cut completely, plunging them into darkness so complete she can hear the faint hum of electricity behind the walls and the sharp rhythm of her own pulse in her ears. "Hey, this isn't funny," she says, trying to laugh it off. But her voice trembles, betraying the fear curling tight in her chest, because she has already had a day that pushed her to the edge, the eviction notice still folded in her coat pocket, the hospital call replaying in her mind like a broken record, her younger brother hooked to machines she can't afford, and now this, trapped in a metal box with a stranger who doesn't move away, who doesn't let go, who simply stands there like he's calculating something far bigger than a broken elevator. "Stay still," he murmurs, softer now, like he's talking her through something fragile, something invisible, and she should pull away. She should demand answers, but instead she freezes, because there's something in his voice, something controlled and heavy, like he's used to chaos but refuses to let it show. And for a second, just a second, she feels safer standing here with him than anywhere else in the city. And that thought alone terrifies her more than the darkness. Seconds stretch, the air thick and quiet until suddenly the emergency lights flicker back on in a dull red glow, painting his face in sharp shadows, revealing a man too polished, too composed, his suit perfectly tailored, his watch catching the dim light like a warning sign she ignored. And before she can ask anything, before she can step back, the elevator jerks again, and then the doors slam open with a violent rush of light and noise, voices flooding in, footsteps, cameras, security, all crashing into the moment like a tidal wave. "Mr. Blackwell," someone shouts, and the name hits her like a physical force, because she knows that name. Everyone does. Ethan Blackwell, billionaire CEO, the man on every business channel, every headline, every conversation about power and money. And suddenly the stranger in the dark isn't a stranger anymore. He's something untouchable, something dangerous, something completely out of her world, her hand still trapped in his as the reality crashes down. And for the first time his grip tightens, not in control, but hesitation, like he doesn't want to let go, like for a moment in the dark, none of this existed. None of the cameras, none of the power, none of the distance between them, just two people sharing the same silence. But the world doesn't wait. Security moves in, pulling him forward, separating them, and the connection snaps so abruptly it leaves her breathless, standing alone in the hallway as flashes go off and voices rise around him. And he doesn't look back at first, doesn't acknowledge her, because men like him don't notice women like her. That's the rule. That's the reality she's always known. But then, just as they're about to pull him away completely, he turns, just once, his eyes finding hers through the chaos, sharp and unreadable, like he's memorizing something he shouldn't care about. And before she can process it, before she can even move, he slips something into her hand, quick and deliberate. And then he's gone, swallowed by power and noise, leaving her standing there, stunned, staring down at what he left behind. A small silver key resting against her palm, cold and impossibly heavy. And for the first time all day, her problems don't feel like the worst thing in her life anymore, because somehow, Without understanding how, she just stepped into something far bigger, something she may not be able to walk away from. Chloe Bennett stands frozen in the hallway long after the noise fades, her fingers slowly curling around the cold silver key as if it might disappear if she loosens her grip, her mind struggling to catch up with what just happened. Because people like Ethan Blackwell do not touch people like her. They do not look at them. They do not leave something behind like it means anything. And yet here she is, staring down at the object in her palm like it carries a message she cannot read. "Miss, you cannot stand here," a security guard says gently, breaking the moment, and she nods quickly, stepping aside, her body moving on instinct while her thoughts lag behind. The hallway returning to normal, as if nothing extraordinary just happened, as if her life did not just shift in a way she cannot yet understand. She slips the key into her coat pocket beside the folded eviction notice, the two objects pressing together like opposite worlds colliding. And then her phone buzzes, sharp and urgent, dragging her back to reality. The hospital number flashing across the screen, her chest tightening as she answers. "Hello," her voice barely steady. "Miss Bennett, this is Mercy General. We need you to come in as soon as possible," the nurse says, calm but firm, and everything else fades instantly. The key, the billionaire, the strange moment in the dark, none of it matters now. "Is my brother okay?" she asks, already moving toward the exit, her steps quick, almost running. "He is stable, but the doctors need to discuss treatment options with you," the nurse replies, and Chloe closes her eyes briefly, that word stable hanging in the air like a fragile promise. She thanks them and hangs up, pushing through the glass doors into the cold night air, the city loud and indifferent, taxis rushing past, people laughing, living, while her world feels like it is balancing on a thin line that could snap at any moment. She walks 3 blocks before she even realizes she is clutching her pocket, her fingers brushing the outline of the key again, and for a second she considers throwing it away, forgetting the entire thing, because nothing good ever comes from crossing into someone else's world, especially not one built on money and power she cannot even imagine. But something stops her, not hope, not trust, just a quiet, persistent question. Why would he give this to me? She reaches the bus stop just as the last bus of the night pulls up, climbing on and taking a seat near the window, the city lights blurring as they pass, her reflection staring back at her, tired, overwhelmed, still wearing the same coat she has worn for 3 winters now. And suddenly the contrast hits her harder than before, his world of glass towers and controlled silence, her world of overdue bills and second chances that never quite arrive. And somewhere in between those two worlds sits a single key she does not understand. When she reaches the hospital, the bright lights feel too harsh, too clean, everything smelling like antiseptic and quiet worry. She signs in, walks the familiar hallway, each step heavier than the last until she reaches her brother's room, pausing for just a second before pushing the door open. He looks small in the bed, machines humming softly around him, his eyes lighting up when he sees her. "Hey, you are late," he teases weakly, and she forces a smile, crossing the room quickly, brushing his hair back. "I had a weird night," she says softly, not even sure how to begin explaining something she does not understand herself. He studies her for a moment, like he always does, like he can see through everything she tries to hide. "You look like something big just happened," he says, and she laughs quietly, shaking her head. "It is nothing," she replies, but even as she says it, her hand slips into her pocket again, fingers wrapping around the key, because deep down she knows that is not true, that whatever happened in that elevator is not finished, it is only beginning, and somewhere out there, in a world she does not belong to, Ethan Blackwell is still holding on to the other half of whatever this is, whether she wants him to or not. "You have 24 hours to decide, Miss Bennett," the doctor says quietly, his voice steady but final, and the words settle into Chloe's chest like a weight she cannot push away. She stands just outside her brother's room, arms wrapped tightly around herself, the fluorescent lights above too bright, too real. Without the procedure, his condition will continue to worsen, he adds, not unkind, just honest. And she nods, even though her mind is racing, numbers flashing through her thoughts. Costs she already knows she cannot meet, options she does not have. She thanks him, her voice small, and watches as he walks away, leaving her alone in the hallway that suddenly feels much longer than before. She leans against the wall, closing her eyes, trying to breathe, trying to think, but all she can see is the eviction notice, the unpaid bills, and now this, something far bigger, far more urgent. And then, without meaning to, her hand moves again, slipping into her coat pocket, her fingers finding the edge of the silver key, smooth, solid, real. She pulls it out slowly, staring at it under the harsh hospital light. And for the first time, she notices the small engraving along its side, an address. Barely visible unless you look closely. Her heart stutters, because suddenly it is no longer just a random object. It is an invitation, or maybe a risk, or maybe both. What did you get yourself into? She whispers to herself, her reflection faint in the polished floor beneath her. She thinks about throwing it away again, about pretending none of this ever happened, because people like Ethan Blackwell do not give without expecting something in return. That is the rule of his world, a rule she has learned from a distance her entire life. But then she looks back through the glass window at her brother, sees the rise and fall of his chest, hears the steady beeping of the machines, and something inside her shifts. Not hope, not trust, just determination born from having no other choice. She slips the key back into her pocket, her decision not fully formed but already in motion. Hours later, the city is quieter, the night stretching deep and endless as Chloe steps off the bus in a part of town she has only ever seen from far away. The buildings taller, cleaner, the streets almost too still. Like even the noise respects the wealth here. She checks the address again on her phone, matching it with the engraving on the key, her pulse quickening with every step, until she finally stands in front of a building that looks more like a statement than a place. Glass rising high into the sky, lights glowing behind every window, a silent kind of power that does not need to prove itself. She hesitates at the entrance, her reflection staring back at her again. The same worn coat, the same tired eyes, completely out of place here. And for a moment she almost turns around, almost convinces herself that this is a mistake she cannot afford to make. But then she remembers the doctor's voice, the 24 hours, and she steps forward, the doors sliding open without a sound. The lobby inside warm and impossibly quiet, a sharp contrast to everything she knows. A man at the front desk looks up immediately, his posture straightening the second he sees her, his eyes flicking to the key in her hand, recognition flashing across his face before she can even speak. "Miss Bennett," he says, as if he has been expecting her, and that alone sends a chill down her spine, because she never told anyone she would come. She never even knew she would. "He is waiting for you," the man continues, gesturing toward a private elevator. And suddenly Chloe realizes this was never a question of if she would show up. It was only a matter of when. Her steps slow as she approaches the elevator, the same enclosed space that changed everything just hours ago. Her reflection once again staring back at her in the polished metal doors, but this time there is something different in her eyes, something steadier, something ready. The doors slide open, and she steps inside, her heart pounding as the elevator begins to rise, higher and higher. Each floor taking her further away from the life she knows and closer to something she does not understand. And when the doors finally open again, Ethan Blackwell is standing there, waiting, exactly where the key was always meant to lead her. "You came," Ethan Blackwell says, his voice calm, but carrying something deeper beneath it. Something that makes Chloe Bennett pause just inside the doorway as the elevator doors slide shut behind her with a quiet final click, sealing her into a world that feels nothing like her own. The space around her wide and open, glass walls stretching from floor to ceiling, the city glowing beneath them like something distant and unreachable. And for a moment, she forgets why she is here, forgets the hospital, the bills, everything, because standing in front of her is the same man from the darkness. But now there is no shadow to soften him, no silence to blur the edges. He is exactly what the world sees. Controlled, powerful, untouchable, and yet his eyes are fixed on her in a way that feels anything but distant. "I almost did not," she replies, her voice steady even though her heart is anything but, her hand tightening slightly around the strap of her bag, as if it is the only thing anchoring her to reality. Ethan studies her for a moment, like he is measuring something he cannot quite define, then gestures toward the seating area behind him, a quiet invitation rather than a command, and that alone throws her off balance more than anything else, because she expected arrogance, expected distance, not this careful restraint. She walks forward slowly, every step deliberate, aware of how out of place she must look here, her worn coat against polished marble, her uncertainty against his certainty, and yet he does not comment on it, does not even seem to notice. "You found the address," he says, his tone almost casual, but there is a weight behind the words, like he already knew she would. "It was engraved on the key," she answers, pulling it from her pocket and holding it up slightly, the metal catching the soft light, his gaze flickering to it briefly before returning to her face. "I wondered if you would come tonight," he says, and something about that sentence makes her chest tighten, because it means this was planned, not random, not impulsive, every detail set in motion long before she even realized it. "Why me?" she asks, the question slipping out before she can stop it, sharp, direct, because she does not have time for anything else. Not now, not when every second matters. And for the first time since she arrived, something shifts in his expression, not weakness, not uncertainty, but honesty, raw and unguarded in a way that does not match the man the world knows. "Because you stayed," he says simply, and she frowns slightly, confusion flickering across her face. In the elevator, he continues, stepping closer, not enough to invade her space, but enough to close the distance that suddenly feels charged with something she cannot name. Most people panic. They pull away. They demand answers. You did not. You trusted a stranger in the dark. His voice lowers slightly, not intense, not forceful, just steady, like he is stating a fact that matters more than anything else. Chloe shakes her head faintly. "I did not trust you," she replies, almost immediately, because the idea feels too big, too dangerous. "I just did not have a choice." And there it is, the truth laid bare between them. Heavier than anything else she has said. Ethan watches her closely, then nods once, like he understands more than she expects. "That is exactly why," he says, and before she can ask what he means, he reaches for something on the table beside him. A folder, thick, precise, deliberate, placing it in front of her with a quiet finality that echoes louder than any raised voice. "You said you did not have a choice," he continues, his tone returning to that controlled calm. "I am giving you one." Chloe looks down at the folder, her pulse quickening again, because she already knows this is where everything changes, where the line she has been standing on disappears completely. "What is this?" she asks, even though part of her already understands. Ethan meets her gaze, unflinching, an agreement. He says, the word simple but loaded with meaning. 30 days, he adds, and her breath catches slightly, the number landing harder than she expects. "You stay by my side, publicly, consistently, no questions asked, and in return, I cover your brother's treatment, every bill, every cost, no limits." The room falls silent after he speaks, the city still glowing behind him, indifferent to the moment that feels like it is reshaping her entire life. Chloe stares at him, then at the folder, then back at him again, her thoughts racing, her instincts screaming, because nothing about this is normal, nothing about this is safe. And yet the image of her brother in that hospital bed rises again, clear and unavoidable, pressing against every doubt she has. "And if I say no?" she asks quietly, testing the edge of this reality. Ethan does not hesitate. "Then you walk away," he replies, just as calm, just as certain, and everything stays exactly the same. And somehow that answer feels heavier than any pressure he could have applied, because it leaves the decision entirely in her hands. Chloe looks down at the folder again, her fingers hovering over it, but not yet touching, because she knows that once she does, once she opens it, there is no going back to the life she had before, and for a long moment, she does not move, caught between two worlds, one she knows will break her, and one she does not understand at all. Chloe Bennett finally exhales, slow and unsteady, her fingers lowering until they rest against the edge of the folder, as if it might disappear if she presses too hard. Her eyes scanning Ethan Blackwell's face one more time, searching for something, anything that tells her this is not real. But he does not look away, does not soften, does not push. He simply waits, and that somehow makes the moment heavier, more real than if he had tried to convince her. 30 days, she repeats quietly, her voice almost lost in the silence of the room, as if saying it out loud might make it easier to understand. But it does not, because 30 days with someone like him could mean everything or nothing, could change her life or leave her with nothing left at all. And yet the image of her brother returns again, stronger this time. Sharper, his weak smile, the machines, the doctor's voice echoing in her mind. 24 hours. She closes her eyes for just a second, and when she opens them again, something has shifted, not confidence, not certainty, just acceptance of the path in front of her. There are conditions, she says, her tone steady now, surprising even herself, because if she is going to step into this world, she will not do it without something of her own. Ethan's brow lifts slightly, not in challenge, but in interest, like he expected resistance. You do not control me. She continues, each word deliberate, grounded. This is an arrangement, not ownership. I decide where I go, what I say, and you do not get to treat me like I belong to you. The words hang in the air, bold, almost reckless considering who she is speaking to, but she does not look away, because this is the only line she is left to draw. Ethan watches her in silence for a moment. Then something unexpected happens, the faintest hint of a smile touches his expression, not mocking, not dismissive, but something quieter, almost impressed. Agreed, he says without hesitation, and the simplicity of that answer catches her off guard, because she expected negotiation, expected pushback, but he gives none. Anything else, he adds, his voice calm, and she hesitates, because there is one more thing, something she is not sure she should say, but she does anyway, because she has already come this far. No lies, she says softly, her eyes locking with his. If I am doing this, I need to know what I am walking into. The room stills again, and for a brief second, she sees something flicker in his gaze, something deeper, something complicated, but it is gone almost as quickly as it appears, replaced by that same controlled calm. You will know what you need to know, he replies, not quite a promise, not quite a refusal, and she realizes that is the closest thing she will get. Chloe nods slowly, because she understands now that his world does not deal in full truths, only necessary ones. And for the first time since she arrived, she reaches forward and opens the folder, the sound of paper shifting louder than it should be. The contract inside precise, detailed, outlining every expectation, every appearance, every boundary, her eyes moving quickly over the words, but her mind is not focused on the specifics, not on the legal language or the timelines, because all of it comes down to one thing, 30 days, one decision, one line that changes everything. She takes a breath, deep and steady, then looks up at him again. If I sign this, she says, her voice quieter now, but no less certain. You pay for everything, no delays, no conditions. My brother gets the treatment he needs immediately. Ethan nods once, firm, absolute. Immediately, he confirms, and that is the moment it becomes real. Not the contract, not the setting, not even him, but that single word, immediate, because it means her brother does not have to wait, does not have to suffer through uncertainty. Chloe swallows hard, her fingers tightening slightly around the pen resting beside the papers, her entire life narrowing down to this one. Action. She glances once more at the city beyond the glass, the distance between where she stands and where she came from suddenly impossible to measure, and then, without allowing herself another second to doubt, she signs, the pen moving steadily across the paper, her name marking the point where everything shifts, where there is no return. When she finishes, she sets the pen down carefully, almost reverently, like she understands the weight of what she has just done. Ethan steps forward then, closing the folder with a quiet, deliberate motion, sealing the agreement between them. It begins now, he says, and something in the way he says it sends a quiet ripple through her, because this is no longer just a decision. It is a reality, one she cannot step out of, one that will follow her into every moment from here on. Chloe nods slowly, her heart still racing but her expression steady, because she has already crossed the line, and whatever comes next, she will have to face it, whether she is ready or not. It begins now, Ethan Blackwell repeats, and the words do not echo in the room. They settle, heavy and permanent, as Chloe Bennett stands there with the faint trace of ink still drying. Beneath her name, her fingers curling slightly as if she can still feel the pen in her hand, the weight of what she just agreed to pressing in from all sides. But there is no time to sit with it, no space to question it, because Ethan has already turned. Already moving forward like this was never uncertain, like her decision was simply another step in a plan that has been unfolding long before she arrived. "Come with me," he says, not looking back to check if she follows, and that alone tells her everything about how his world works. Things move. People adjust. Hesitation does not exist here. Chloe exhales slowly and steps after him, her boots soft against the polished floor, every movement feeling louder in the silence than it should. They walk down a quiet hallway lined with glass and soft light, the city stretching endlessly beyond it. And for a moment, she feels like she is walking through something unreal, like she stepped out of her life and into someone else's without warning. Ethan stops in front of a set of doors that open the moment he approaches, revealing a space that feels less like an office and more like a control center, screens glowing softly, people working in focused silence, every detail precise, efficient, controlled. "Miss Bennett." A woman greets immediately, her tone professional but warm, as if Chloe's presence here is already expected, already accounted for. "Medical arrangements have been initiated," she continues, handing Ethan a tablet, and Chloe's breath catches slightly, her eyes flicking to the screen even though she cannot see it clearly, because the words alone are enough. Initiated, not pending, not delayed, but already in motion. Ethan glances at the information briefly, then hands the tablet back without hesitation. "Make sure there are no limitations," he says calmly, and the woman nods. Already moving to carry out the instruction, Chloe stands there, still, trying to process the speed of it all, the way something that felt impossible just hours ago is now unfolding in real time without resistance, without question. "Your brother will be transferred to a private unit within the hour," Ethan says, turning back to her, his voice steady, factual, like he is simply stating the next step in a sequence. But to her it feels like everything, like the ground shifting beneath her in a way she cannot fully comprehend. "You did that already," she says quietly, her voice almost disbelieving, because she has spent months fighting for scraps of attention, for delayed responses, for maybe, and now this. Immediate, certain, real. Ethan watches her for a moment, then nods slightly. "I told you," he replies, and there is no pride in his tone, no need to prove anything, just certainty. And somehow that makes it feel even more overwhelming. Chloe swallows, her hand instinctively moving to her pocket again. But this time she does not reach for the key, because she does not need it anymore. She is already here, already inside this world, already part of something she cannot step away from. "There is more," Ethan continues, and the words pull her attention back immediately, her heart tightening slightly, because of course, there is more. There is always more in a world like this. He gestures toward another room, smaller, quieter, and she follows him again, stepping inside as the door closes softly behind them. "Public perception is everything," he says, turning to face her fully now, his expression focused, precise. "Starting tomorrow, you will be seen with me, consistently, intentionally. There will be no gaps, no uncertainty, no questions about who you are or why you are there." Chloe nods slowly, the reality of the agreement settling in deeper now, not just the contract, not just the exchange, but the visibility, the exposure, the way her life will no longer be her own in the way it used to be. "And if people ask," she begins, her voice steady but cautious, "we give them an answer they believe." Ethan finishes, his tone calm but firm, and she studies him for a moment, realizing that this is not just about appearance. This is about control, narrative, perception, all the things she has never had to think about before. "You are not just standing beside me," he adds, his gaze steady on hers. "You are becoming part of my world." And there is something in the way he says it that makes her chest tighten. Again, not fear, not exactly, but awareness, because she understands now that this is not something she can pretend her way through, not something she can treat as temporary and untouched. It will change her, in ways she cannot yet see. Chloe takes a slow breath, grounding herself. "Then you should know," she says quietly, meeting his gaze without hesitation. I am not going to be who people expect. And for a second, just a second, something shifts in his expression again, that same quiet. Recognition from before, like he already knows that. Like it is exactly why she is here. Good. He says simply, and the word lands with more weight than anything else he could have said, because it means he does not want predictable. He does not want easy. He wants something real, something different. And suddenly Chloe realizes that whatever this arrangement is, whatever these 30 days will become, it is not going to be simple, not for him, and definitely not for her. The first flash hits before Chloe Bennett even realizes she has stepped outside. The sharp burst of light cutting through the morning air as cameras line the sidewalk. Voices rising in overlapping waves. Mr. Blackwell, who is she? Is this confirmed? Are you finally settling down? And for a split second she freezes, her body instinctively pulling back as if she can disappear into the glass doors behind her. But then she feels it. Ethan Blackwell's presence beside her, steady, unmoving, his hand lightly guiding her forward, not gripping, not forcing, just enough to anchor her in the storm that has already begun. Stay with me, he says under his breath, his voice calm, controlled, like the chaos around them is something he has learned to navigate without effort. And somehow that steadiness reaches her, cuts through the panic rising in her chest. Chloe inhales slowly and steps forward beside him, matching his pace, even though every instinct tells her to turn around, to run, to go. Back to the quiet life where no one is watching her every move. But that life is already gone, replaced by this moment, by this agreement she chose. And the cameras do not stop, the questions do not slow. If anything, they grow louder as they walk, the distance to the car feeling far longer than it should. Miss, how did you meet? Someone calls out, and the question hangs in the air like a test she is not prepared for. Chloe's mind races, remembering his words. We give them an answer they believe, and before she can second-guess herself, she turns her head slightly, just enough for her voice to carry. In an elevator, she says, simple, honest, but incomplete, and the reaction is immediate. Murmurs spreading, curiosity igniting, because the answer is just enough to feed the story without revealing the truth. Ethan glances at her then, a brief look, but there is something in it, approval, recognition, like she just passed a test she did not even know she was taking. They reach the car finally, the door opening before them, and as soon as they are inside, the noise fades, the world outside reduced to distant motion behind tinted glass. Chloe exhales sharply, the tension leaving her body all at once, her hands trembling slightly as she presses them together in her lap. That was not in the contract, she says, her voice quieter now, almost breathless, and Ethan watches her for a moment before responding. That is the part no contract can prepare you for, he replies, his tone calm. But there is a subtle shift there, something less distant than before, like he understands exactly what she just experienced. Because he has lived in it for years. Chloe lets out a small, disbelieving laugh, shaking her head. People were looking at me like I was already something, she says, her eyes dropping briefly to her hands, still steadying themselves, like I belonged there. Ethan leans back slightly, his gaze still on her. You do, he says simply, and she looks up at him immediately, the certainty in his voice catching her off guard again. No, she replies, almost instinctively. I do not. But he does not argue, does not correct her. He simply studies her like he is waiting for something, not a response, but a realization she has not reached yet. The car moves smoothly through the city, the silence between them not uncomfortable, but charged, like something unspoken is beginning to take shape. And then his phone rings, the sharp sound breaking the moment. Ethan answers without hesitation, his expression shifting instantly back to the man the world knows, focused, controlled. Yes, he says, listening for a moment before responding. Schedule it for tonight. He adds, and Chloe's attention sharpens immediately, something in his tone different, more deliberate. We go public tonight, he continues, and her breath catches slightly, the words landing heavier than she expects, because she thought this morning was already public, already overwhelming. But this is something else entirely, something planned, something far bigger. He ends the call and looks at her, not with hesitation, not with warning, just certainty. There is a gala tonight, he says, his voice steady. You will be there with me. Chloe stares at him for a moment, her thoughts scrambling to catch up again, because everything is moving too fast, too precise, like she is being pulled into a current she cannot slow down. Tonight, she repeats, her voice quieter now, and he nods once. Tonight. And in that single word, she realizes this is not just an arrangement anymore. It is a performance, a story being built in real time. One she is now at the center of, whether she is ready or not. Chloe looks out the window, the city passing by in a blur, her reflection faint in the glass, but different now. Not just the girl from yesterday, not just the one who walked into that elevator without knowing what would happen next, but someone standing at the edge of something much bigger, something that will not wait for her to be ready. And as the car continues forward, she understands one thing with absolute clarity. Tonight will change everything. Do not react. Ethan's voice murmurs softly beside her as the car door opens, the cool evening air brushing against Chloe Bennett's skin. But it is not the temperature that makes her tense. It is the sight in front of her, a staircase lined with lights, cameras flashing like a storm waiting to break, voices already rising as soon as the car is recognized. And for a brief second she forgets how to move, forgets how to breathe. Because this is not just attention. This is exposure on a level she has never faced. Just stay with me, he adds, and this time there is something different in his tone, not just control, but reassurance, quiet and steady. And without thinking she nods, stepping out beside him, her heels meeting the pavement with a confidence she does not fully feel, yet somehow manages to show. The noise hits instantly, louder than before, more aggressive. Questions flying from every direction. Is she the one? How long has this been happening? Are you engaged? And Chloe feels it again, that pull to retreat, to disappear, but then Ethan's hand brushes lightly against the small of her back. Not possessive, not forceful, just grounding, and she holds on to that, focusing on the rhythm of their steps as they move forward together. One step, then another, the world narrowing down to the path ahead, until they reach the top of the stairs and the doors open, revealing a space filled with people who all seem to belong here in a way she does not. Elegant, composed, every detail deliberate. Conversations pausing as they enter, eyes shifting toward them with a curiosity that feels sharper than the cameras outside. Chloe keeps her expression steady, her posture straight, remembering every word he said. Public perception is everything. And for the first time she understands what that really means. It is not just about being seen. It is about how you are seen. Stay close, Ethan says quietly, guiding her through the room, introducing her with a simple nod here, a brief acknowledgement there, never explaining too much, never giving more than necessary. And she follows, listening, observing, adjusting with every interaction, until slowly, almost without realizing it, she begins to match the rhythm of the room, her movements more certain, her responses more measured. And then it happens, a voice cutting through the noise, sharper than the rest. Ethan, a woman says, stepping into their path, her presence commanding. Attention without effort, her expression calm but her eyes anything but. Chloe feels the shift immediately, the tension tightening in the space between them. I was wondering how long it would take before you made your move. The woman continues, her gaze flicking to Chloe briefly, assessing, calculating. Or should I say your statement? Chloe's breath slows instinctively, because she knows this is different. This is not curiosity. This is challenge. Ethan's posture does not change, but there is a subtle edge to his voice when he responds. This is Chloe. He says simply, not elaborating, not explaining. And the woman's lips curve slightly, not quite a smile. Of course she is, she replies, her tone smooth but layered with something beneath it. Something that feels like a test. Chloe meets her gaze, steady, refusing to look away even though every instinct tells her to. Because she understands now that this moment matters, not just to him, but to her. And you are, Chloe says calmly, her voice even, and the woman tilts her head slightly, as if amused. Someone who knows Ethan better than most, she answers. And the implication hangs in the air, heavy, deliberate. Chloe feels it. The shift in attention, the subtle pause in nearby conversations, people watching, waiting to see how this unfolds. and for a split second doubt flickers through her. But then she remembers why she is here, what she chose, and she straightens slightly, her voice steady when she responds. Then you know he does not do anything without a reason. The words land cleanly, confidently, and for the first time the woman's expression changes, just slightly, something unreadable passing through her gaze. Before it settles again, Ethan glances at Chloe then, brief but significant, like he did not expect that, like she just stepped into a space most people would avoid, and the woman lets out a quiet breath, almost a laugh. Interesting, she says softly, stepping back just enough to clear their path. Let us see how long this lasts. And with that, she moves away, leaving behind a silence that feels louder than the conversation before. Chloe exhales slowly, only then realizing how tightly she had been holding herself together. Ethan leans slightly closer, his voice low enough that only she can hear. You handled that well, he says, and there is no exaggeration in it, no politeness, just truth. And for the first time since this began, Chloe allows herself a small, quiet sense of something she has not felt in a long time. Not confidence exactly, but the beginning of it. And as the night continues, as the room shifts and moves around them, she realizes something else. This world may not be hers, but she is no longer just surviving in it. She is starting to stand in it, and that changes everything, even if she does not yet know where it will lead. This will not stay quiet for long. The same woman's voice drifts from somewhere behind them, not loud enough to interrupt the room, but sharp enough to reach exactly where it needs to. And Chloe Bennett feels the words settle into the air like a warning disguised as observation. She does not turn this time, does not give the moment more attention than it deserves, because she understands now that every reaction here has a cost. Every hesitation becomes a story, and instead she focuses forward, her posture steady, her expression composed, even as her thoughts begin to shift beneath the surface. Because something about that encounter did not feel like a simple challenge. It felt like knowledge, like history she has not been told yet. Ignore her, Ethan says quietly beside her, his voice controlled but not dismissive, and Chloe glances at him briefly, catching the tension he does not show to anyone else. The slight tightening in his jaw, the way his gaze lingers just a fraction longer than usual, and she realizes this is not nothing to him. This is not a passing inconvenience. It is something deeper, something unresolved, but she does not ask, not here, not now, because she knows this is not the place for questions that carry weight. The night continues, conversations blending together, introductions flowing one after another, and Chloe moves through it with a growing sense of awareness, noticing the subtle shifts in tone, the way people speak differently when they think they are being observed, the way power moves quietly rather than loudly. And for the first time she sees it clearly. This world is not built on what is said, but on what is implied, on what is left unsaid, and somehow she is already part of it, whether she feels ready or not. Hours pass before the room begins to thin, the energy softening as guests start to leave, and when they finally step outside again, the night air feels different, cooler, quieter, like the city has exhaled after holding its breath. Chloe pauses for a moment at the top of the steps, looking out at the lights stretching endlessly in front of her, her mind catching up with everything that has happened in a single day. The elevator, the contract, the cameras, the woman, the way her life has shifted so quickly she has not had time to understand it. You did not tell me about her, she says finally, her voice calm but direct, because this question cannot wait. Not after what she felt in that room. Ethan stops beside her, his gaze moving out over the city rather than toward her, and for a moment he says nothing, the silence stretching just long enough to confirm what she already suspects, that this is not simple, that this is not something he can dismiss easily. Her name is Victoria Hale, he says at last, his voice measured, controlled, but there is something beneath it now, something quieter, heavier. She used to be part of my life, he adds, and the choice of words is deliberate, careful, not offering more than necessary, but not avoiding the truth either. Chloe watches him closely, the pieces beginning to form in her mind, not complete, not clear, but enough to understand that whatever existed there did not end cleanly, did not disappear without leaving something behind. And now, she asks softly, her eyes steady on his, and he turns to look at her then, fully, directly. And for the first time since this began, there is no distance in his expression, no controlled separation, just honesty, quiet and unguarded. Now she wants to know why you are standing where she used to stand, he says, and the words land between them with a weight that changes everything. Because suddenly this is not just about a contract, not just about appearances or public perception. It is about something personal, something that reaches beyond the agreement they signed. Chloe feels it settle in her chest, that awareness, that shift, because she understands now that she is not just stepping into a role. She is stepping into a space that already holds history, expectation, and unfinished questions. And before she can respond, before she can decide what that means for her, her phone buzzes in her hand, sharp and urgent, pulling her back instantly. She looks down, her breath catching as she sees the hospital number again, and everything else fades. The gala, the conversation, the tension, all of it disappears as she answers. Hello, her voice tight with sudden fear. Miss Bennett, the nurse says quickly, but there is something different this time, something lighter. The procedure has been scheduled. Your brother is being prepped now. Everything is in place. Chloe closes her eyes for a second, relief flooding through her so fast, it almost feels unreal, her hand trembling slightly as she thanks them, her voice breaking just enough to reveal how much this means. When she hangs up, she looks at Ethan again, the reality of what he has done for her cutting through everything else. You kept your word, she says quietly, and he nods once, simple, certain. I always do, he replies, and in that moment, standing between the world she came from and the one she has just entered, Chloe realizes something she did not expect. This was supposed to be a transaction, a temporary solution, something she could walk away from after 30 days. But nothing about this feels temporary anymore. Not the way he looks at her, not the way she is already being pulled deeper into his life, and not the way her own heart reacts in ways she cannot fully explain. And as the city stretches out in front of them, vast and uncertain, she understands one thing with absolute clarity. This is no longer just an agreement. It is the beginning of something far more complicated, something that will not end when the 30 days are over.